You have to enjoy what you're doing, or no one's going to be buying what you're selling.
Okay. Today, we want to say welcome to the Denezier Effect Podcast, where business leaders, entrepreneurs, and visionary share the blueprint and their breakthrough. I'm your host, James Denezier, and every week we dive in with different business owners to have the conversation about business. And really, this is your front row to the playbook. So let's get into it.
Okay, let's go.
All right. My guest today, it is the one and only Sean. Sean, how are you today?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm blessed. Welcome to the podcast, Sean.
Hey, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, Sean, we met through a mutual friend. And, from the get-go, I'm like, man, this is a guy, very professional. He looked to be laid back, but I can tell he's very smart. He pay attention to details. And one thing about business is when you pay attention to details, it takes you a long way. So today we have the honor to have you today. I just want to know a little bit about your background. Let everybody know your background, where you're from originally, just so, before we get started.
Well, I was born in Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas.
Around age 3 or 4, moved to the East Coast. So I grew up in the Maryland, D.C. area. I am originally of Jamaican and Cuban descent.
Jamaican and Cuban?
I am.
That's an interesting mix.
Now, obviously, I can understand it to a certain point, but I can't speak it.
You can speak it. Okay, gotcha. We're not going to hold that against you.
I appreciate that. But no, just the average, upbringing.
Nice.
In Prince George's County, Maryland. Okay. Big sports guy and love my football.
You love football. Where, did you ever play football in high school or?
Nah, not in high school. Maybe like the after school, elementary, middle school, things like that. I'm not the most athletic, but I enjoyed the sport nonetheless.
That's good. That's good to know.
Yeah, no, but just even going into school, I went to Florida A&M University, so go Rattlers. I have always been fascinated with people. So, I went from starting with a major in engineering, and then eventually I migrated into sociology and psychology, just fascinated with the way the mind works, the way people works. And that kind of stuck with me, through the years. Got into hospitality, so hotels, kind of moved my way up, into hospitality management before I even graduated. But it was just always something about the service of customers.
Nice.
That had always attracted me.
That's nice. Service. I mean, one of the things I always talk about is I talk about Jesus a lot because I believe Jesus teaches us a lot of great things. When you put yourself in a position to serve, this is when you really can maybe live a life of purpose, I could say.
Sure.
And I like the fact that, you have a little bit background in psychology and so on. And, but once again, welcome to the show. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Of course.
Well, I'll just get right into it. A lot of time people will get into business. And as your journey begins, you had to kind of like find a way to make things happen.
Of course.
And they have to be something that inspire you. So what actually inspired you to finally start your business? And what pushed you to actually take that action?
Well, it wasn't an overnight thing. So, it's one of those things where, when you're used to working for someone, sometimes it's a matter of, your work-life balance, or as a lot of people, who have the 9 to 5 can attest to, lack thereof. It gets to a point where day in and day out, all of your hours are spent working and away from your family. Some people are used to it. Some people make it work. But, at the end of the day, I feel like more of my time gets dedicated to being away from my family, and not really, a fan of that, right? Because family is everything. Family is important. So it becomes difficult when you start missing, special occasions, birthdays, holidays, major events, things like that. So like many people, when you have that desire for freedom, right, whether it's financial freedom or just freedom, just to be there for your family, you you find yourself becoming more of a dreamer than a doer. I want this, I want that. But a lot of people are kind of bound by fear. Why is that? Mm-hmm. Because you have a guaranteed paycheck.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, so at least they want you to believe.
Right.
Because the moment they want to get rid of you, that's it. But yes, keep going.
No, absolutely. So, you always want, you look at the videos, you read the books, you see the successful people, right? The entrepreneurs, the business owners, they were flashing, the money and, the fame and, I got this and I got that. And they're not answering to anybody. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of people, fancy having that kind of lifestyle.
That's true.
But they don't know where to begin.
That's true.
So to answer your question, I got to a point where working 20, 25 years, for someone else, I didn't have much to show for it. I'm 42 years old and I feel like I don't have anything to show for it. What have I done? What can I say that I've done for myself? So you get to a point where, you start thinking about it more and more. Maybe you're losing a little bit of sleep. Maybe I don't want this life. I want to leave some type of a legacy behind, right? I want to know that I left something behind. I'm known for something, when my time is done. You don't typically get that in a 9-to-5 job. So I got to a point where I started focusing on business, how to become a business owner and not an employee, right? So again, you kind of get back into the dreamer side. Mm-hmm. And you have to start shifting your mindset to becoming a doer. And that's not easy.
No.
If it was that easy, I think a lot of us would
do it.
Exactly, would be business owners. So it was just that mindset where you just kind of wake up and you're like, I want to do something better for myself and for my family.
That's really good. That's very good. And as you were talking, I'm actually starting to think of my process.
Sure.
And part of my story is my son was born in a September. And that December was his first Christmas. Mm-hmm. And my manager would not give me the day off.
Exactly.
Yes. So when you mentioned that, it kind of go back to that. And you also mentioned family, spending more time away from your family. The freedom. Sometimes you want to do something, they got to approve a couple of days off for you. I always say this. I believe everybody, it's good to have the experience to have a job.
Sure.
But that should be temporary until you find yourself and then you go out there and make history. You mentioned something as well that say getting back to dreaming. This is so powerful. I know it's very passive how you say it. This is so powerful. I trained on that last Friday and 2 Fridays ago, I believe. And my training was that was my question to the guys. When did you stop dreaming? Like, when did you stop dreaming? And you got to think about this. Because as a little girl, a little boy, you dream so big.
Sure.
It's like, I'm going to be in space one day, an astronaut. Or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And all of a sudden, you get to the workplace, you get to the marketplace, and all of a sudden they pay you a certain amount of an hour. And you spend more time doing that job. And all of a sudden, your dream, you don't even think about them anymore.
Well, the reality is a lot different from the dream.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it takes the dream for you to take that action.
To build your reality.
To build the reality.
Absolutely.
You got to visualize it first. So what was the very first step you took? And how did you know where to begin? Like, exactly, how did you know where to begin after you take that first step?
Well, it's kind of a loaded question, man.
Right?
It's,
I know. Believe me, I know. Because I'm saying that in a viewpoint, someone right now is watching this episode.
Sure.
It might be the very same week, or it might be 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. And by the way, one thing I tell you behind the mic is when you make your first $50,000, I want to have you back here.
Absolutely.
Kind of like to track what's going on, because I
truly
believe things gonna work well for you. So I'm asking those questions in the perspective of someone who's been thinking about it but never take the first step. So that's why I ask you, what was the very first step you take, and how did you know that was, where to begin?
Well, so for anybody to be successful, truly successful, you have to be passionate about what you're doing, what you're doing, what you're selling, what you're owning. So with that passion becomes, the want to learn. And for me, that was my foundation. You asked me, where did I get started? It was learning. It was, started with reading, some books, watching some videos. We're in an age where, information is anywhere and everywhere.
Yep, that's true.
So, there's courses, there's so many things that you can pay for, but, this day and age, you'd be amazed at how much good information you could just find for free. YouTube, Google, everything like that. So for me, it was finding something that I enjoyed, finding something that suited my strengths, which is customer service, and then learning, and then continuing to learn the next day, and then learning the day after that. So what really hit home for me is my willingness and passion to want to learn something new every day.
Every day. I like that.
Yeah.
Staying a student of life.
Yeah. So for me, it's not just watching, it's retaining. I got books and binders of, notes and screenshots and, things that I can just use as resources as far as my journey goes. Right. The first thing I wrote down, the first, webinar, the first, event, just nothing but notes. But again, it all has to be that passion. You have to want to take those notes. You have to want to sit through those webinars. You have to want to continue to learn hours and hours, days and weeks and months. It's not overnight. If you get to a point where you've gone through, 3, 4, 5 notebooks full of notes and you still want to learn more, then you have your passion. Right? If you're going through hours and hours of trainings and you're still engaged, that's passion. If you want to pay it forward, everything you've learned, you want to, pass it on what you've learned. You're excited to tell people what you learned. You're excited to tell people what you're passionate about. Then it's just that passion. And that's what a lot of people don't have, that drive. You have to enjoy what you're doing or no one's going to be buying what you're selling.
Jeez, man, now you're dropping the bombs. Like you're dropping them right now. You are dropping them. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Because, we would sit here and think about it. I'll just use that as an example. I do a lot of trainings, and sometimes when I'm training, you can tell those who are involved.
Absolutely.
You can tell those who are taking notes, and you can tell those who are kind of like checked out.
Those that care.
Those that care.